Alright, so this problem first asks you to create a bar chart. So I've got the problems here that you were to do, and I put the data into Excel so that I could actually do something with it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight my data. Sometimes you can highlight both columns, sometimes you have to do one at a time. For bar charts, I can highlight them together because anytime I've got this categorical data, it's pretty easy. So I can go right here to Insert, and right in the middle are all my different charts. And I want a column chart, so I'm going to click here at the one that has the columns, and I just need a basic two-dimensional. And you can see it even creates a decent type of chart to start with, and then it's going to be a matter of me playing with it. So I'm just clicking and dragging it over. I want to make it a little bit bigger so it's easier to see what's going on. You can see though that I am missing my titles on my axes. I'm not able to see what numbers these really are coming up to that are in between my grid lines, so I want to fix those types of items on here. So one quick thing I can do is if I go to the quick layout, click that drop down, here are some general ideas of what people like to see a lot of times. So the one I use a lot is this layout number 9. And that's because it gives me chart, axis titles, and the key if I want it. But normally I click on the key and just push delete and it goes away. So down here I can name this sport. Here I can name this frequency. And then I can call this favorite sports. Okay. Now all these numbers look really small, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click just so I get everything highlighted there. If I go to Home and I have everything set on Calibri, which is 10-point font, I can change this right here to any size I want. So maybe I want it at 18-point font to make it really easy to see those numbers. Now you see it compacts everything as well when you do that. However, we can still fix all these different aspects. So our x-axis with the categories looks perfectly fine. Now we just need to fix our y-axis with these frequencies. So if I click on the axis, I see it highlights all the numbers. So there's two ways I can go about improving the data that I see. One way is I can right click and I can format the axis. And you can see it pops up this box here and it tells me where's my minimum data going, where's my maximum. I don't need it to go to 120. I'm going to put it just beyond 100 just so it's easy to see, so maybe 101. And see, that also changes my minimum, so I want my minimum to become 0 still. It allows my data to show up and make sure it's all there. And my major axes, let me go back there. If that ever happens, you can see that I'm looking for my icons here, and I look for the one that looks like a bar graph, and then I'm on axis options. So my major axis here is counting every 20. Well, I need to do one of two things. Either I need to change it to 5s because I have numbers on the 5s, or I need to do 10s with a minor axis of 5s. So I can show you if I click 5s. Here's the one issue. See how all those numbers are shoved in there? It becomes really hard to see the graph and read the numbers. So it's a little bit messy. So instead, if we do 10s, and then we come back and make the minor axis 5, now here's the thing. We don't see the minor axis here. In those minor grid lines, it becomes a little bit difficult. So there's a few things we can do to help out with that. One of these, if we keep going down, here was our axis options. Next is tick marks. I can change this so that the major ones, maybe I do cross, and then the minor ones I do on the outside. Now I'm going to click off of the chart and show you what that looks like. You can see these little tick marks here. The cross goes both inside and outside, and then the minor ones are just on the inside. Now, if you've got something like a straight edge that you could hold up to your screen, you could see that it goes across, but even that's somewhat difficult for people to do. So we can continue to find ways to help out. So one of those ways, I'm going to close this window. I can do I can do one thing two different ways. If you have a newer version of Excel, you've got this plus in the top corner when you click on it. And what we're really looking at are the grid lines. And if I click on my options for grid lines, see, I clicked on it, went away. But if I click the drop down, that's the major. What I also want, because remember we said the major tick marks were going to be every 10 and the minor would be every 5. I can add in the minor horizontal. That's my frequency values there. And if I click on that, now I can easily see, oh, here's 25, and 25 comes all the way across here. It becomes a lot simpler to read my graph. So now I have my labels, and I have the grid marks, and it's easy to read every number on the graph, so that when I say that I want to be able to see every number on the graph accurately, I can easily look over here and say, oh, that's 25. I follow the grid line and say, oh, baseball is 25, soccer is 25. So that's an accurate graph. Now let's look at how to make the pie graph. So if I make the pie graph, I'm going to start with my same data. So I'm going to highlight my data. I'm going to come up here to Insert, and I'm going to come up to the one that looks like a circle. It creates a pie chart. And I'm going to move it down here. And you can see it's all there, but it's still kind of hard to read. So I'm going to go to my layouts here, and I've got several options. The one that I like often is layout 6. I think the nice thing to get in those percentages in there can be helpful. And all this is tiny again, so if I go back to home and see it's in 9-point font, again I could change that to 18, much easier to read. Now I can say, well, I've got all this data, what do I want to do? Well, this should be favorite sports, so I need a title. And then when I look at my numbers here, I think, is the percents what I want? If so, that's okay. But look, that's 13% and that's 12%, and they're exactly the same frequency. So maybe percents aren't always the best number, or if they are, you need to change how far out they go. So let's look at some other options that I could do here. So I can use this drop down, I can use the chart elements. And you can see if I click any of these drops, it tells me where do I want to put it, how do I want to label everything. What I can also do is if I right click on my numbers, I can format my data labels. That's those labels that are showing the percents. And so I have my options about, well, what is it that I want to show? If I want the percentages, then maybe what I want instead of general is that I want a number that goes to 1 or 2 decimal places. Or maybe I want it to go even 3 decimal places so that I could actually see that. Or maybe I do want the percentage, and maybe that's when I just need 1 extra decimal place so I can see that 12.5%. Or maybe I just want the value and not the percentage. And here I just have to make sure if I do that, I want to change my number back to general. And that would give me the frequency. So part of it is playing with these labeling options and figuring out what type of label makes the most sense for what you're trying to show with the data. So that's the biggest thing you have to pay attention to. So that's how you make a bar chart and a pie graph. From here, writing your questions, you've got many different options as to what you could do. So if I want to read the data, I could ask how many students prefer baseball as their favorite sport. And I could easily see from the graph, oh, baseball, 25. That's reading the data. Reading between the data could be something like, how many more students prefer basketball over soccer? So then I'd have to look at basketball, say it's at 50, and soccer, which is at 25, and say, oh, 25 more students prefer basketball. And then reading beyond the data is trying to extrapolate something beyond what you see here, something maybe you could follow through with later, or something that may go beyond what's here. For example, it could be something like, what if lacrosse was added to this option? How might the numbers change? Or does the favorite sport of the children match that of their parents? And then be able to compare those two graphs, the parent's favorite sport to the child's favorite sport, and see how close those frequencies are. So beyond is that idea of trying to evaluate and synthesize and analyze in ways that may be beyond what you can necessarily do directly with it, but helps push forward the idea of some statistical analysis you may want to do.